The idea of control your mind or it controls you is simple, but extremely powerful. Most people go through life reacting to their thoughts instead of directing them. They wake up feeling tired, stressed, or negative, and they assume that's just how the day is supposed to go. But that's not true. Your mind is not your master. You are the master. Think of your mind like a tool. Just like a car won't drive itself to the right destination unless you steer it, your mind won't lead you to success unless you guide it. If you leave it on autopilot, it naturally drifts toward worry, fear, doubt, and negativity. That's because the human brain is wired to detect problems as a survival mechanism. But what helped humans survive in the past can now hold you back from growing. When you don't control your thoughts, small negative ideas quickly grow bigger. One bad moment can turn into a bad day, then a bad week, simply because your mind keeps replaying and adding to it. For example, if you think, "I'm not good enough," your brain will start collecting evidence to support that belief. You'll remember past failures, ignore your strengths, and hesitate to take action. Over time, this becomes your reality, not because it's true, but because you allowed that thought to stay. On the other hand, when you take control, everything begins to shift. Controlling your mind doesn't mean you never have negative thoughts. It means you don't let them stay. You notice them, question them, and replace them. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," you train yourself to say, "I'll figure it out." That small shift changes your behavior. You try more, learn more, and improve. Control also comes from awareness. You have to start observing your thoughts like an outsider. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me or hurting me? If it's hurting you, it doesn't deserve your attention. The more you practice this, the stronger your mental discipline becomes. Another important part of control is what you feed your mind daily. The people you listen to, the content you watch, and the conversations you engage in all shape your thinking. If you surround yourself with negativity, it becomes harder to stay positive. But if you expose yourself to growth, learning, and motivation, your mind starts aligning with that energy. In the end, your life is a reflection of your dominant thoughts. If you let your mind run freely, it can limit you, create fear, and keep you stuck. But if you take control, consciously choosing what to think, what to focus on, and what to ignore, you gain power over your direction. So the real question is, are you driving your mind, or is your mind driving you? One of the biggest misconceptions about successful or happy people is that they don't have negative thoughts. That's simply not true. Every human being experiences doubt, fear, insecurity, and worry at some point. It's part of how the brain is designed. Your mind constantly scans for problems, risks, and threats. It's a built-in survival system. So having negative thoughts doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means you're human. The real difference lies in what you do after the negative thought appears. Most people treat negative thoughts as facts. The moment a thought like, "I'm not good enough," or "this won't work," pops up, they accept it without question. Then they sit in it. They replay it. They build more thoughts around it. Before they know it, one small negative idea has turned into a mindset. That's where the real damage happens. Not in the thought itself, but in staying there. Think of negative thoughts like clouds passing through the sky. You can notice them without letting them block your entire view. But if you keep staring at one dark cloud, it starts to feel like the whole sky is covered. In reality, it's just your focus that's stuck. Successful people still have doubts, but they don't give them a place to stay. They've trained themselves to respond differently. When a negative thought appears, they challenge it. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," they ask, "Why not?" Instead of assuming failure, They look for solutions. This shift doesn't eliminate negativity. It prevents it from taking control. Another important thing to understand is that thoughts are not commands. Just because you think something doesn't mean you have to believe it or act on it. Your mind throws out thousands of thoughts every day. Some useful, some completely useless. Learning to filter them is a skill, and like any skill, it improves with practice. Staying stuck in negativity also becomes a habit over time. The more you allow yourself to sit in negative thinking, the easier it becomes for your brain to go there automatically. But the opposite is also true. The more you interrupt negative patterns and redirect your thinking, the more natural positivity and problem-solving become. One practical way to handle this is to create a mental pause. The moment you notice a negative thought, stop and label it. This is just a negative thought, not a fact. That small pause creates distance. It gives you the power to choose a better response instead of reacting automatically. At the end of the day, you don't have full control over what thoughts enter your mind, but you have full control over which ones you keep. That's where your power lies. So remember, negative thoughts will come and go. That's normal. But staying in them, feeding them, and letting them define your actions, that's always a choice. The principle, what you focus on grows, is one of the most important mental rules you can understand. Your brain works like a filter. It constantly scans your environment and your experiences, but it only highlights what you tell it is important. And how do you tell it what's important? Through your focus. At any given moment, there are thousands of things happening around you and within you. There are problems and opportunities, stress and gratitude, failure and progress. But you don't experience all of it equally. Your mind selects certain things to zoom in on, and those things begin to feel bigger, more powerful, and more real. If you constantly focus on what's going wrong, your brain starts collecting more evidence of what's wrong. For example, if you wake up thinking, "Today is going to be difficult," your mind begins to notice every inconvenience. Traffic feels worse, small mistakes feel bigger, and even neutral situations seem negative. By the end of the day, you feel like everything went wrong, even if that wasn't entirely true. On the other hand, if you shift your focus to what's working, something interesting happens. Your brain starts identifying opportunities, solutions, and positives that you would normally ignore. That doesn't mean problems disappear. It means they stop dominating your mental space. You become more balanced, more solution-oriented, and more resilient. This idea is closely connected to a concept in psychology called the reticular activating system, RAS. It's a part of your brain that acts like a filter for information. When you focus on something repeatedly, your RAS starts prioritizing it. That's why when you think about buying a certain car, you suddenly start seeing it everywhere. The car was always there. You just trained your brain to notice it. The same thing happens with your goals, your fears, and your beliefs. If you focus on your limitations, you'll see more reasons why you can't succeed. If you focus on growth and possibilities, your brain will start finding ways forward. Your external world begins to reflect your internal focus. However, this doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending everything is perfect. Real growth comes from acknowledging challenges, but choosing not to dwell on them. It's about asking better questions. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "What can I learn from this?" Or, "What can I do next?" That shift in focus moves you from a victim mindset to a problem-solver mindset. Your focus is also shaped by your daily habits, what you watch, who you listen to, and what you repeatedly think about. If you're constantly surrounded by negativity, your focus naturally shifts in that direction. But if you intentionally expose yourself to positive, growth-oriented input, your focus begins to change. In simple terms, your mind is like a magnifying glass. Whatever you place under it becomes bigger in your experience. So if you want a better life, better results, and a better mindset, you have to become intentional about where you place your focus. Because in the end, what you focus on doesn't just grow in your mind, it grows in your life. How you start your morning quietly shapes everything that follows. Before anything major happens, before work, conversations, or challenges, your mind has already set a direction. That's why starting your day with gratitude is so powerful. It doesn't change your circumstances instantly, but it changes how you experience them, and that changes your actions. Most people wake up and immediately focus on stress, things they have to do, problems they're facing, or what's missing in their life. This puts the brain into a reactive, negative state from the very beginning. Once that state is set, it becomes easier for the rest of the day to follow the same pattern. Small inconveniences feel bigger, patience becomes shorter, and motivation drops. Gratitude interrupts that pattern. When you consciously take a moment in the morning to appreciate what you already have, your health, your family, a roof over your head, even the simple fact that you woke up, you shift your brain into a different mode. Instead of scanning for problems, it starts recognizing value. This creates a sense of calm, stability, and even optimism before the day fully begins. From a mental perspective, gratitude works because it redirects attention. Your brain cannot fully focus on appreciation and negativity at the same time. When you actively think about what you're thankful for, you weaken the grip of stress and worry. Over time, this trains your mind to naturally notice the positive aspects of your life more often. It also changes your emotional baseline. When you start your day feeling grateful, you carry a lighter mindset into your tasks. You're more patient with people, more resilient when things don't go as planned, and more open to opportunities. The challenges don't disappear, but your response to them improves. Gratitude also builds consistency and positive thinking. It's not about forcing yourself to feel happy every second. It's about creating a daily habit that gently guides your mind in a better direction. Just like physical exercise strengthens your body over time, mental habits like gratitude strengthen your mindset. The practice itself doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as taking 1 or 2 minutes after waking up and thinking of 3 things you're genuinely thankful for. They don't have to be big achievements. In fact, the smaller, everyday things often have the most impact because they remind you that value already exists in your life. Another important aspect is sincerity. Gratitude isn't just repeating words, it's actually feeling them. When you pause and truly recognize something you appreciate, even briefly, it creates a deeper mental shift than just saying it out of routine. Over time, this small habit begins to influence bigger areas of your life. You become less focused on what you lack and more aware of what you can build from. That shift alone can increase motivation, confidence, and overall satisfaction. In the end, starting your day with gratitude is like setting the tone of a conversation with life. You're choosing to begin from a place of awareness and appreciation rather than stress and lack. And that choice, repeated daily, can quietly reshape how you think, act, and move forward. Expectation is one of the most overlooked forces behind success or failure. It quietly influences how you think, how you act, and ultimately what results you get. Whether you realize it or not, you are always expecting something, from your day, from other people, and from yourself. And those expectations often become self-fulfilling. When you expect things to go wrong, your mind and behavior start aligning with that belief. You hesitate more, take fewer risks, and notice every small setback as confirmation that you were right. For example, if you walk into an interview thinking, I'm probably going to fail. Your body language, tone, and confidence reflect that expectation. Even if you have the skills, your performance drops because your mindset is already working against you. On the other hand, when you expect something positive, your behavior shifts in a completely different direction. You prepare better, carry more confidence, and stay open to opportunities. It's not magic, it's alignment. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions start moving in the same direction, which increases your chances of success. This concept is closely related to a psychological idea often called the self-fulfilling prophecy. When you strongly believe something will happen, you unconsciously act in ways that make it more likely. Your expectation becomes a blueprint for your actions. Over time, this pattern reinforces itself, making your belief feel even more true. But expectation doesn't mean blind optimism or ignoring reality. It's not about pretending everything will be perfect. It's about choosing a direction for your mindset. You can acknowledge challenges while still expecting growth, progress, or a solution. That balance keeps you grounded while still moving forward. Another important part of expectation is consistency. One positive thought won't change your life, just like one negative thought won't ruin it. What matters is your dominant expectation, the one you return to again and again. If most of your thinking is filled with doubt, your results will reflect that. If most of your thinking is filled with belief and possibility, your actions will gradually improve. Expectation also affects how you interpret events. Two people can go through the same situation and walk away with completely different conclusions. One might see failure as proof they're not capable, while the other sees it as feedback and keeps going. The difference isn't the event, it's the expectation they carried into it. You can think of expectation like setting a mental destination. If you expect growth, you keep moving, adjusting, and learning. If you expect failure, you stop early or never fully commit. In both cases, the expectation guides the journey. The good news is that expectation is something you can consciously change. It starts with awareness, paying attention to what you assume will happen. Then, you begin to challenge limiting expectations and replace them with more empowering ones. Instead of, "This won't work," you shift to, "Let's see how I can make this work." In the end, your life doesn't just respond to your actions. It responds to the mindset behind those actions. Expectation sets that mindset. It shapes how you show up every day. So if you want different results, don't just change what you do. Start by changing what you expect, because that's where the process truly begins.